that tonight's speakers are able to join us and to discuss Islamic family law. Dr. Main, and let's see if I can find Dr. Main here. Where are you, Dr. Main? Let's see. Dr. Main. Dr. Main, when you went to the PowerPoint, here you are. Here you are. Okay, there's Dr. Main. Dr. Main is an associate professor of Islamic studies. He's also a resident scholar at MAS Mosque in Katy, and he's a mufti on the Fatwa Committee of the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America. And it goes by the acronym AMJA. And AMJA is an independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. And it was established in response to a growing need for Islamic jurisprudence that is specific to Muslims in the United States. Its main goal is to uphold authentic standards using high academic standards, moderate approach, and a rejection of extremism. So we're very grateful for Dr. Main to be with us. In addition to that, if I can find Mr. Jarudi. Mr. Jarudi, where are you? Mr. Jarudi, there you are. There's Mr. Jarudi. Good evening, Mr. Jarudi. He's joining us this evening with Dr. Main, and he is a practicing attorney in Houston, and he specializes in wills, probate, guardianship, and a very interesting niche area, that is that he assists Muslims with harmonizing their wishes to follow Islamic law with Texas law. Incredible, he speaks Mandarin as well as he's fluent not only in Mandarin, but also in Arabic. And he clerked for the Harris County Probate Court Judge Roy Olsen, and he is trained in advanced family mediation. So please, you all, if you would, welcome me in joining these two speakers tonight. And I have unmuted everyone, so let's give them an applause. And we really, really appreciate you all being here this evening very much. So I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Main. And Dr. Main, let me spotlight you here. There we are. And if you'd like to proceed.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Professor McNabb, for the opportunity. I would like to welcome you, Mr. Jarudi, and the ladies and gentlemen in South Texas College of Law. Thank you so much for the opportunity and to give me those few minutes to share some thoughts about the Muslim family law. My understanding from Professor McNabb is that this is a kind of competitive studies between different family laws for different communities who live in the US. Some of them belong to different tradition, different culture, different religious background. And I'm here today actually to represent the Muslim family law. Of course, this topic is very long and very detailed, and it is impossible, literally impossible, to cover it in 40 minutes. I'm here to represent Guidance College. As you see the logo, it's an Islamic university here in Houston, Texas, and we do teach Muslim family law on 2 different levels. We have Muslim family law 1 and 2, where we cover engagement, marriage, divorce, custody, guardianship, duties and responsibilities of spouses in level 1. And we covered the Islamic inheritance law, or the last, including the last will or the bequest in level 2. However, upon Professor McNabb's request, I limited myself actually to only 8 different points that he requested in one of his emails. So to start, I want to emphasize the fact here that the Muslim family law is a part of the Islamic law at large. And the Islamic law actually is a comprehensive way of life, covers the social aspect and the economic and the finance and the military and this, spiritual. And one of the different branches of the Islamic law is the Muslim family law. I can confidently say that the Muslim family law is a part of the divine law. Divine law, as opposed to a man-made law. It is not a man-made law. It is a divine law, which means that it is extracted from the holy book of the Muslim community, the Quran, and from the practice and the statements of our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and some other maybe narrations and practices of the eminent companions of the Prophet. However, when we say that the Muslim family law is a part of the divine law, it does not necessarily mean that every single tiny detail, technical rule is agreed upon and it is supported by an evidence from the Quran or the prophetic practice. We call it the Sunnah, S-U-N-N-A-H. Sunnah means the prophetic practice. Of course, a lot of rules are backed up by straightforward evidence, and those rules are agreed upon. Some other rules actually are debatable, and that's why within the Sunni branch that I represent today, as opposed to the Shi'i one, we do have 4 different schools of thought, and we have some like minor differences when it comes to the Muslim family law. For example, the obligatory of having a guardian to represent the bride in the marriage contract. Is it mandatory or is it recommended? So that's something minor comparison to other rules related to conducting or executing the marriage contract. So it is a part of the divine law, and a good portion of the Muslim family law is fixed, agreed upon, and a good portion of it as well is debatable. You can call it variable, subjective. It's up to the founders of the different schools of thought how to interpret certain evidences, and that's why they come up with different or various rules. The very first topic that I was requested to talk about is the age of marriage. And we need to make it clear here from Islamic perspective that there is a huge difference between conducting a marriage contract, declaring X and Y to be a husband and wife from one side, versus the consummation of the marriage. In the Islamic law, the consummation of the marriage is not allowed whatsoever until the two spouses, the husband and the wife, can tolerate and can enjoy actually the physical relation, emotionally, physically, like the intimate relation between the couple. They have to reach to a certain age where intimacy actually is possible and an enjoyable act for both parties. Having said that, maybe to your surprise all, there is no minimum age for marriage in Islam. There is no minimum age for marriage in Islam. Is that something proven? Of course. We do not actually have any evidence that the man or the woman, the boy or the girl, have to reach a certain age, to get involved in a marriage contract. And in certain cases, maybe the guardian, like the father of the boy, okay, who did not reach the age of puberty, or the father of the girl who is still young, and upon his own, assessment and discretion, might find it beneficial for his daughter to get involved in a marriage contract in a very early age. Okay, I want you to zoom out and look at the whole picture. Okay, it might happen that a father is an old man and he feels that he's about to pass away. He has a very young daughter. There is no one to take care of his daughter after his death. So he found out that marrying his daughter to a boy or a man might bring some benefit or some security, if you wish, for his daughter after his death. So actually he goes ahead and just, marries his daughter to somebody else. When we say that there is no minimum age for marriage, it means that even like infants, even like, boys, children, they can get married. And again, there is a big difference between conducting the marriage contract versus the consummation of the marriage. If it did happen in the Islamic law, if it did happen that a minor kid, boy or girl, got married, the marriage contract actually is a valid one. However, it is on hold or suspended pending the approval of the boy or the girl. And their approval cannot be considered unless they reach the age of puberty. So when the boy actually turns maybe 14 or 15 years old, girl is the same, okay? The Muslim judge or authority has to, ask the girl, your dad, a while ago, a few years ago, married you to so-and-so individual. Do you approve that? Are you okay with that? Okay. If she says, yes, I do not mind at all, then the marriage actually can be consummated. And if she said no, then she does have the right to object and the marriage contract actually will be terminated. So I just want to emphasize here that there is no dictatorship here. Okay. When the Islamic law gives, the authority of the father to marry his son or to his daughter to somebody else, okay, there is definitely like a wisdom behind that. And this does not mean that the Muslim authority at large is not supposed to organize or to encode this issue. Of course, in different practices in different countries, there is a Muslim family law, and it is actually clear, okay, in the family law that minors cannot execute the marriage contract by themselves. They have to be accompanied by their parents. And this is actually very similar to the law of the United States. To my knowledge, if a girl is less than 16 years old, she cannot get married. If she is 16, she has to be accompanied by one of her parents. If she is 18, then she is free actually to go ahead and conduct a marriage contract by herself. So you can see that there is a kind of similarity between the Islamic and the US law. Stipulations inserted in marriage contracts. Well, this is like a very wide statement. When we say stipulations inserted in marriage contracts, what do you mean by stipulations? Commonly known, when we say stipulations, we call it here prenuptial agreement. Okay, that the spouses, okay, before proceeding with the marriage contract, they sit together and they come up with certain certain conditions, and everything actually is negotiable, is on the table. She says, for example, I don't want to travel outside the United States. If you decide to go overseas, for business or for job opportunity purposes, you can go, but I cannot go with you. Is that okay with you? And he says, yeah. So they just write down in the marriage contract a condition that she is not supposed to accompany her husband going outside the United States. Okay, well, that would be fine. In the Islamic law at large, whether the Muslim family law or any other civil law, all the conditions and the stipulations and the clauses that people agree upon, as long as those conditions or stipulations do not prohibit whatever is permissible and do not permit whatever is prohibited, then they are to be honored, they are to be fulfilled. And those conditions actually are binding for the two contracting parties, whether we're talking about marriage contract or just a business agreement or business transaction, whatever the engagement between different parties might be. So there is no exception when it comes to the Muslim family law. Well, what if the condition or the stipulation is very unacceptable, at least in the Islamic law? Okay, she told her like potential husband that if I decide one day, I'm just giving just an example. If I decide one day to have a relationship with another man and take him as a boyfriend, you cannot stop me. Are you okay with that? Okay, even if they both actually agree on that, well, this is actually a void or an invalid stipulation or condition, because that's against the principles of Islamic law to start with. So to address this point, yes, all the conditions or the stipulations or the clauses, whatever is included in the prenuptial agreement is agreed upon, okay, up to certain limit. Those stipulations are to be honored, are to be fulfilled. And not only that, if the prenuptial agreement is violated, then the whole marriage contract actually is subject to termination. Why? Because it has been violated. Say, for example, that she asked for a minimum of $2,000 sponsorship on a monthly basis, that he has to give her cash money, $2,000. And they got married, and then after a few months, he did not pay her. Does she have the right, again, from an Islamic perspective, does she have the right to ask for divorce? Yes, she does. Why? Because they agreed that he has to pay her $2,000, and he actually broke the agreement. He did not, fulfill the agreement. So she can, confidently proceed with her divorce because the prenuptial agreement actually has been violated. The way that we look at the dowry is that it's a kind of gift or a courtesy. Actually, it's way different from the financial sponsorship. According to the Islamic law, when a man and woman get married, one of the consequences, one of the default actually duties and responsibilities of the husband is to sponsor his wife. Sponsoring his wife regardless whether she is in need or not, okay? Regardless whether she is asking for sponsorship or not. Once you get married as a man, then you are financially responsible. Even if she does have a job, by the way, even if she does have a job, even if she makes money, even more than her husband, when it comes to sponsorship, covering the basic or the necessities and the basic needs of the household, that is the exclusive responsibility of the husband and not the wife. And this actually has nothing to do with the dowry. Dowry is something to be paid or to be given as a gift, as like a nice gesture of love and harmony, and like good wishes of having a harmonious and happy life together. And it has to be something that does have a value. So it could be like as simple as the engagement ring, if they both agree on that, or if she is okay with getting an engagement ring for $500, for $1,000 more or less, that would be fine. Is mentioning the dowry one of the pillars of the Islamic marriage contract? No, it is not. They can proceed with the Islamic marriage contract without mentioning or specifying a certain amount or a certain thing to be given to the wife. However, once they get married and the marriage actually is consummated, then the husband actually has to pay his wife whatever other men in that particular era, that particular society, usually pay as a dowry, for their wives. There is a cultural practice. It's not a religious practice in some societies, like in Jordan, for example, in Egypt and some other Muslim countries. They do actually divide the dowry into two different portions. There is muqaddam, like the upfront dowry, where the husband actually pays it, whether via gold or jewelry or cash money or furniture, whatever they agree upon. That is to be paid upfront before the consummation of the marriage. And they leave another portion of the dowry. They call it muakhar. Muakhar actually is the delayed one. So if the total dowry is, for example, $10,000, she might ask for only $1,000 to be paid upfront, and the remaining $9,000 are mahrun muakhar, delayed dowry. Delayed actually means that those $9,000 in our example will be due in one of two different cases, either by the death of the wife or the husband, okay, where the marriage contract actually is terminated by default, or otherwise in case of having an irrevocable final divorce. If they get separated permanently and there is no way for them to get back, then actually he has to commit to paying her the delayed dowry of $9,000. Is this against the Islamic principles? No, it's not. But as I said, I mean, this is a cultural practice more than to be a religious one. Some other societies like Saudi Arabia, like, a lot of Gulf countries, they just go with the book. It's one-time payment prior to the consummation of the marriage, and that's it. If the husband decides to divorce his wife after 1 or 2 weeks or 1 or 2 months, I mean, there are no financial consequences. I mean, he already paid, for the marriage contract, paid the dowry, and there is no consequence. So that is the dowry. It is highly recommended actually to keep the dowry as simple as possible, and not actually to overload the groom or the man with a lot of expenses, especially if he is not that well off financially. The family of the bride is highly recommended, to advise their daughter to make it easy and not to ask too much, because again, from an Islamic perspective, the marriage contract is not a business transaction. It's a very sacred and very ethical and very social, very spiritual relationship or connection between two different souls. So it should be way above all this, materialistic issues and money. It's not about money. It's about, love. It's about care. It's about establishing a cornerstone of an ethical and a moral society. However, one of the requirements for the validity of the marriage contract actually is to specify a dowry. If the wife is okay with proceeding with the marriage contract before receiving her dowry, would that be fine? The answer is yes, that would be fine. However, once the marriage is consummated, then that amount of money or that dowry became mandatory upon the husband to pay it as soon as possible. Polygamy in the USA, by the way, back in the 40s and the 50s of last century, polygamy actually was permissible, and then for certain reason actually it became prohibited. Here is the way that we look at it from an Islamic perspective. First of all, statistically speaking, male and female ratio is between 40-60 to 45-55. Statistically speaking, I mean, this is for fact. In every society, the total amount of females is more than or bigger than, greater than the total number of males. Let me go with a very hypothetical example. I mean, just for discussion purposes. Imagine that we have a very small community of 100 individuals. All of them are adults. All of them are single. So based on this fact, we should be having 40 men and 60 women. Okay. if we want to impose monogamy, single marriage, then 40 men will be getting married with 40 women, right? So far, so good. How about the remaining 20 women? They will stay unmarried. They will stay unmarried. Bear in mind that in the real life, some men actually might prefer not to get married to start with. So even if we go with this, well, even if we ignore this assumption, the best case scenario with monogamy implemented and polygamy prohibited, we're going to end up with having 40 men getting married with 40 women, and 20 women will stay unmarried. Okay, those 20 women do have a lot of social and a lot of financial and a lot of physical and, excuse me, a lot of sexual needs, and those needs, those needs are to be fulfilled. Okay, they might be patient enough, like to go and work and just take care of their bills, but we should not assume that all of them are righteous and practicing, religious people, in which their piety and their righteousness would prevent them from committing whatever is prohibited. Okay, if there is no intimacy in a permissible way, that sexual need has to be fulfilled. That sexual need has to be fulfilled. And again, if we impose monogamy, then we are actually opening the floor widely for prostitution in the society, homosexuality, in particular lesbianism, fornication, and adultery. It's a part of our human nature, okay, that some men might not be happy enough, or their sexual need might not be fulfilled enough with only one female, okay, and we end up having two options: either to allow, like, infidelity and immorality in the society, and in the Islamic law, as you see here, infidelity is strictly prohibited. Okay, a man is not supposed to teach, right? To cheat. So he has his wife. I mean, he has to limit himself to his wife only. Well, what if he is not that happy, and there is like another woman in the society, in that small community, is interested in him, and he is interested in her? They either do something prohibited, immoral, or otherwise they get married according to the Islamic principles. And if they get married, then that husband has to treat his second wife in the same way that he treats his first wife. He has to be just and fair enough with them emotionally and financially and everything. So this is actually the philosophy behind the permissibility of polygamy in Islam. We do believe that polygamy is permissible, okay? And the only condition or stipulations that we have is that the financial ability, so the one who is interested in getting married with another woman, he has to be financially able, because again, it's a big commitment. You want to get married, you need to establish a household, you need to be financially, responsible to cover the expenses if you're new or your second, wife. If you are unable, then just step aside and do not get involved in marriage. So polygamy actually is introducing itself as a default solution. Otherwise, if we do prohibit polygamy, then actually we are opening the floor widely for prostitution, for homosexuality, for adultery, for fornication. And I think we all want to have our society as moral, as modest, as ethical, society as possible. And having like prostitution, homosexuality, fornication, adultery actually are against the morality and the modesty that we are aiming. So yes, polygamy is permissible as long as the husband actually is able to financially manage and is able actually to be fair and just enough with his multiple wives. Of course, up to 4 wives. I mean, that's the Islamic law. So a Muslim man can get married with the first, second, third, and fourth wife. Muslim minorities living in the US, are they encouraged to practice polygamy? The answer is no, because polygamy is permissible. It's not a highly recommended act. We live in a society where polygamy is a federal offense. and Muslims living in the US are supposed to abide with the law of the land. When the law of the land, whether we believe it is right or wrong, when the law of the land says no to polygamy, it means no to polygamy. A Muslim man is not supposed to get involved in polygamy because the law of the land does not allow that. Maintenance and obedience. Okay, I still have, I started 5:30. Okay, I'm almost done. Okay. Maintenance and obedience.
Dr. Mann, it's 6:15. We have 30 minutes. So you have plenty of time.
How much time I have? I'm sorry?
You have about 30 minutes.
Oh, 30 minutes.
30. So you have plenty of time, sir.
Okay, thank you. So when it comes to maintenance and obedience, we need to agree on something here, that we all, like in this class, can take one bus. So all of us actually will be passengers. All of us can be, I mean, up to maybe 100 people can just, ride the same bus together. But all of us will be passengers. But how many drivers we have? I mean, we cannot have more than one driver. If each one of us will be jumping on the steering and just making a decision, going right and going left, we're going to jeopardize the life of everybody in the bus. That is the philosophy actually that we have in the Islamic law, that in the household, everybody actually is a consultant. Everybody is a consultant, even the minors, even the kids, boys, girls. I mean, everybody, everybody's opinion is to be respected and to be taken into consideration. But when it comes to making major decisions, someone has to be in charge. Someone has to be in charge. And that someone that has to be in charge is the husband and not the wife. And I'm just making it very, very clear. The leadership of the household actually is for the husband and not for the wife. It might come to your mind that this is a kind of sexism. Well, with all due respect, it is not. It is not. Now we agree, or at least from my perspective, that we cannot have we cannot have more than one leader for the household. Now, someone actually has to be in charge, either the husband or the wife. What we believe in is that men, in general, of course we do have exceptions, are rationally motivated, while females in general are emotionally motivated. When it comes to leadership, we need someone who is rationally motivated to make a rational, correct and accurate and mature decisions, not someone who is emotionally motivated. And of course, running the household is not an easy job. When we say that the husband actually is the person in charge, it does not mean that the wife is to be excluded or to be ignored, or her opinion is to be belittled or not to be consulted with. No, at all. As I said, I mean, every single individual in the household, even the kids, even the minor kids, are to be consulted with, are to be asked questions, and to share in any conversation when it comes to making strategic big decisions in the household. But someone at the end of the day has to be in charge, and that someone, fortunately or unfortunately, actually is the husband and not the wife. Well, the leadership of the household comes as a package. It's not a dictatorship. Okay, it's not a dictatorship. It is a leadership. Leadership actually means the duties, responsibilities, and rights at the same time. I just said a few minutes ago that sponsoring or the sponsorship, the financial sponsorship of the whole household is the exclusive responsibility of the husband. Well, the one who brings money is the one who's supposed to make strategic decisions. Okay, as they say nowadays, no money, no honey. Money talks, right? The one who brings money, or at least the one who is responsible for bringing money, is the one actually who should have the final word in the household. So we have many consultants, but we have only one leader or one driver for the bus, if you wish. Leadership of the household is for the husband, as I already established, and that is way different from dictatorship. Okay, dictatorship actually is not tolerable in the Islamic law, whether in the political arena or in the social arena or in the marital arena, there is nothing called dictatorship. Of course, I'm talking from a theoretical perspective, not from a practical perspective. Well, nowadays there is a lot of dictatorship in the Middle East and the Muslim world, unfortunately. But I'm talking from a pure Islamic perspective, not the practical perspective. So it comes with rights and duties. The maintenance and the financial sponsorship is the exclusive responsibility of the husband. He has to take care of his wife. He has to take care of his kids all the way until the age of puberty. Even after the age of puberty, if they are still in need for his financial support, say for example that they go to colleges and they go to college for on a full-time basis, they cannot afford working and just paying for their tuition fees. Well, the husband actually, or the father in this case, is responsible to sponsor his kids until they get their degrees, at least the undergraduate degree. And because he's financially responsible and because he is rationally motivated, then everybody in the household, including his wife and his kids, are supposed to listen to him, are supposed to appreciate his leadership, are supposed to support him. And again, I just want to make it clear that this is not a dictatorship. Everybody actually is to be consulted with, but at the end of the day, someone has to be in charge, and that actually person is the husband and not the wife. Divorce. Let's be honest with you. There is a significant difference between the Islamic law and the U.S. law when it comes to divorce. In the U.S. law, and you know better than I, no one can initiate divorce, neither the husband nor the wife. You need to fill out an application. You go to the family court and you apply for divorce. Could be like a joint application, could be like a single application from one of the spouses. In the Islamic law, it is completely different. Okay, in the Islamic law, the one who initiates the marriage contract, the one who asks for the hand of the girl or propose the girl for marriage, and the one who represents himself in the marriage contract is the one who has the right to initiate divorce. So very simple example: a husband and wife get involved in a fight, and the husband said to his wife, "You are divorced. You are divorced." Whether those couple live in the US or they live in Saudi Arabia, it doesn't make any difference. The divorce actually is valid. But guess what? Here in the US, the Islamic divorce is valid, not the civil one. I'm sorry, the Islamic divorce is valid, yeah. The Islamic divorce is valid, but not the civil one. And there is a bit difference between the civil marriage, Islamic marriage from one side, civil divorce and Islamic divorce from the other side. Okay, we as a minority living here in the US, if you want to get married, we have to go through the process. There is something called the marriage license. Okay, that has to be fulfilled and filled out and approved by the county, and then the couple can go to their place of worship, masjid if they are Muslims, church if they are Christians, synagogue if they are Jews, place of worship if they follow different tradition, do their own religious marriage contract, and then go back to the county, to document that the religious marriage contract has been conducted. So we have a civil marriage and a religious one. Now I'm talking from a religious perspective, not from the civil one. When the husband says to his wife, "You are divorced," then she is divorced. Because what we believe in, again, that husband actually is I don't wanna call it more mature, no, but rationally motivated more than to be emotionally motivated, right? So when he says you are divorced, it means that he is fed up. He tried all different techniques and solutions. Nothing actually is working out, and that's why actually he decided to divorce his wife. So it is the exclusive right of the husband. Back to the prenuptial agreement. What if the marriage in the marriage contract they both agreed, or she asked her husband or potential husband that, okay, I want to have the right of divorcing you in the same way that you have the right to divorce me. Okay, Now, the way that we interpret this inquiry or this request from the wife is that the husband is delegating that right, like authorizing his wife to divorce herself. If he says, yes, you are absolutely allowed to divorce yourself, and it was documented and 2 witnesses were there, and then after a while they get into a fight and she said, you are divorced. Well, based on the pre-authorization he has given to his wife, okay, then actually they are divorced. But this is the exception and not the default. The default is that the husband is the one actually who is supposed to execute and initiate the divorce. So it can be delegated to the wife, yet extremely disliked again, because if that's the default like right of wives, in the same way it is the default right of husband, I assure you that more than 90% of the families are, you know, or have been broken, like, you know, and getting separated a while ago. And that's why, you know, it is the exclusive right of the husband and not the wife. In the Islamic law or the Muslim family law, the husband actually does have 3 different chances. So in the first episode, in the first fight, he said, you are divorced. Then she is divorced, right? And, you know, upon initiating divorce, she goes into what is called al-iddah, or the waiting period, which is in most cases, like 3 menstrual periods. Okay, 3 menstrual periods, 1, 2, 3, approximately 3 months, you know, plus or minus. During that time, the wife is supposed to stay home and just act normally as if nothing happened. She is not supposed to be like separated from her husband, and the husband actually should stay home and just have access, you know, to, you know, his house as if nothing happened. During that waiting period, we call this divorce a revocable divorce. Revocable in a sense that the husband does have the right to take back his wife. Okay, if he gave her a hug, or excuse me, if he kissed her, or even if he, like, you know, had intimacy with her, this is actually a take back by default, because what we believe in is that a Muslim man does not have intimacy with any female other than his wife. So the fact that he slept with her, it means that he is taking her back. So within that waiting period of approximately 3 months menstrual periods, if he takes his wife back, then she is back. That is the first one. And the second time, after a while, they get divorced. Okay, same scenario. And then he took her back. Okay, what if he did not take her back? What if those 3 months or 3 menstrual periods already passed and he did not take her back? Or otherwise she was pregnant, and upon the delivery, okay, because that's the waiting period of the pregnant wife, whenever she delivers her pregnancy, then she is free. Then the divorce actually is irrevocable. Irrevocable in a sense that if it is done for the first time or the second time, they can get back to one another, but they have to establish a new marriage contract. They have to establish a new marriage contract. Well, let's go with the first scenario. He divorced her for the first time and took her back. And then after a few months, few years, he divorced her for the second time and took her back before the end of the waiting period. And then he divorced her for the 3rd time. Well, 3rd time, that's it. Time's up. Okay. She has to go through the waiting period, but he cannot take her back. They have to get separated immediately. They have to get separated immediately. And according to the Quran itself, if the wife is divorced for the 3rd time, she cannot get back to her former husband until she gets married with another husband, okay, another man. And that marriage has to be consummated. They have to sleep, excuse me, they have to have intimacy. And then if they decide to break that marriage, to get their divorce, and they did, and her waiting period from the 2nd marriage is over, if she thinks at that time that she can get back to her former, okay, previous first husband, and he's okay with that, then they can re-establish a marital relation by re-establishing a marriage contract again. Of course, there are a lot of technical details, but this is just to give you an idea about the rules of divorce in the Islamic law. To my knowledge, I'm not that expert in the Islamic jurisprudence of the Shi'i sect, but to my knowledge, the Shi'i Muslims cannot divorce one another. They have to go to the mullah or to the fiqh authority or to the religious authority, like the priest or the imam or the minister, to initiate a divorce, for them. But do not take my, my statement, because again, I'm not that expert in this field. You need to ask a Shi'i imam to give you an answer. I'm here, representing Ahlul Sunnah, or the Sunni sect, and not the Shi'i one. Waiting period. Okay. When it comes to custody, the US law and the Islamic law are identical. In a sense that the custody is the default rule of the mother. The custody is the default rule of the mother. As long as the kids are minors, did not reach the age of puberty. In the USA, I think whenever they turn 12 years old, please correct me if I'm wrong, whenever they turn 12 years old, then the judge actually has to ask the kids, do you want to stay with your dad or with your mom, right? It's very, very almost identical to the Islamic law. Kids, minors, okay, are to stay with their mom. We do have some slight differences here between different schools of thoughts within the Sunni Muslim. If the kid is a boy, then he should be with his mom. If the kid is a girl, should be with her dad, and vice versa. I mean, all these minor differences should not disturb us from understanding the whole process. One more time, it is the exclusive right of the mother, as long as her competence is proven. Okay, if the husband can prove her disqualification, mental, psychological, emotional, financial, whatever disqualification might be, and he can make a case in front of the judge, then the judge actually has to go to the next in line custodian, which is the mother of the, the mother of the wife, which is the grandmother of the kids. Well, what if she is not available or she is not willing? There is no specification who will be next in line to take the custody of the kids. It has to be arranged upon mutual agreement between the couple, like the husband and the wife. If that is not possible due to tension or sensitivity or fighting between the two different families, then actually the Muslim authority or the judge has to intervene, and just have or assign someone to be the custodian of the kids. And again, whenever they reach the age of puberty, okay, the kids have to stand in front of the judge, and he should ask them a question. Do you want to stay with your dad or with your mom? It's absolutely up to them. There is another piece of information here. If she gets married, she loses that right. Okay, and in the narration of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, أنت أحق به ما لم تنكحي. A lady who was divorced came to him and was asking for divorce. He said, okay, that is your right unless you get married. So if the divorcee, if the mother got married with another one, then she loses her default right of custody. When we say that custody is the exclusive right of the mother, it does not mean by any chance, by any way, that the husband or the father of the kids is to be deprived from taking care of his kids. Always joint custody is an option, but the one who is taking the custody is the one where the kids are supposed to live with him or with her in this case, right? Maybe the husband can take the kids in the weekend, maybe every day from certain time to certain time, whatever the arrangement might be done through the court. But we have to make sure, again, in the Muslim family law, that both parents do have an access to the kids, and they can enjoy kissing and loving and hugging and taking their kids and living their normal life as if nothing happened. However, the one who is the custodian is the one who is taking care of the kids. And if someone actually has a joint custody or minor custody, if you wish, then actually he is entitled to take the kids in that particular time where the judge actually allowed him to take the kids and spend some time with them. So joint custody is always considered. Upon reaching the age of puberty, kids have the right to choose between parents. One more point to go. What's the difference between custody and guardianship? Guardianship, actually, by guardianship, I mean the legal guardianship, okay? Who represents that kid, that child in front of the, the authority, okay, who makes major decisions on behalf of that child. If that child is a wealthy individual, it might be the case. Who is responsible to manage the wealth of that child? Okay, let's say that he inherited a good amount of money or wealth from one of his relatives, and his dad actually is still there. Well, the father actually is the default. The father is the default guardian of his minor kids, as long as the father is there, competent, capable, available. Then by default, actually, he is the guardian. If absent, very possible, travels a lot, deceased, incompetent, maybe blind, maybe handicapped, maybe mentally not that stable, whatever the deficiency might be, then actually his father, which is the grandfather of the kids, is to be the guardian of the kids. This does not mean that the mother cannot be a guardian. Well, she can be a guardian. In addition to be the custodian and the one who's taking care of the kids on a daily basis, she can be the legal guardian of the kids and just take care of them and making like major decisions on their behalf. If not, then anyone appointed by the father, again, as long as the father is qualified enough to make a decision. But what if the father actually is abusive, or he's not that a good individual, or disqualified, whatever the reason behind disqualification might be? At that point, then the authority or the Muslim judge actually has to intervene and just bring someone on board and assign him to be the guardian of the kids. As I said in the beginning, those are the 8 exact points that Professor McNabb actually asked me to talk about. And again, I just want to make a disclaimer that I did not mention even 10% of the technical and fiqh or jurisprudential rules of those issues. It's just like a brief introduction to the Muslim family law, in order for our students in South Texas College of Law to have an idea about the similarities between the US law and the Islamic law, and maybe the similarities and the differences between the Muslim family law versus other family law within the different minorities here in the US. Again, thank you for the opportunity. I'm really glad that Professor McNabb gave me that opportunity to talk to you all. And I'm done with my presentation. The floor is back to you, Professor McNabb.
Dr. Main, we thank you so much. That was very, very interesting, and you kindly presented it in a clear and concise way that it was easy to follow you. If you would go back, if you would eliminate the share screen so that we can go back.
Good enough?
Okay, so we're back to a gallery view. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Class, I'm going to unmute everyone, and this is your opportunity now to ask Dr. Main, and please ask Mr. Giroudi questions as well with regard to anything that you have that we've talked about in class or that was covered this evening. So give me just a second, and you'll note that I'll unmute you in just a minute.
Bye. Daddy, scratch. Did they still eat you?
You're on mute, Professor McNabb. You're muted.
Everyone was unmuted except for me.
Yeah.
So everyone is unmuted now, and I invite you all to ask any questions. I'm going to cancel the spotlight on Dr. Main, And we'll go to, I'm looking for the gallery. There we go. I knew if I kept that. Okay. Any questions now for our two speakers this evening?
Yes, Dr. Main. My name is Matthew Graham. Thank you for joining us this evening. As far as interpretation of Islamic law, what do you think has been the biggest evolution regarding the approach to Islamic family law that you know of?
Well, the Islamic law at large actually did experience a kind of evolution throughout the Muslim history. And it was like, crystallized, if you wish, by the end of the 5th century, where those 5 major schools or jurisprudential or juristic schools have been like initiated and well established, and they have their own references and they have their own methodology of interpreting the rules of Islamic law. So by the end of the 5th century, after the death of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, I would say, we reached the peak in Islamic law, where the differences between the 4 different schools were clear, and the opinion of each imam was very, very clear. Like, for example, if you follow the Shafi'i juristic school, you don't have to mention the dowry in the marriage contract. If you follow the Maliki school of thought, for example, then having 2 witnesses is not a must. So all these differences between juristic schools actually were very, very clear by the end of I would say the 4th or the 5th century after the death of Prophet Muhammad.
Okay. Has there been any kind of evolution within the schools, or do you see any evolution coming around with interpretations anytime soon?
Well, what we practice for the time being actually is we do establish what is called fiqh councils. Fiqh means a religious verdict. So the best practice that we go through nowadays is to establish a council of scholars, people who are highly specialized in a certain area. Let's say in the Islamic law, for example. Okay, they sit together and they answer the contemporary questions of the community. They come up with a group answer instead of individual answer. So, for example, I'm a member in the Fatwa committee. Fatwa means religious verdict, in an organization that Professor McNabb introduced in the beginning called AMJA. Maybe you can Google it later on. AMJA. That's the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America. Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America. This is actually a group of highly specialized scholars in the Islamic law. And because of us living in the US for a long period of time and being exposed to the American culture and the rules and the restrictions and the law of the land, we know very well what does it mean to live in this society. And that's why we introduced ourselves to our community at large, that we are here if you want, if you have any question in mind, anything contemporary, anything that you could not find in the traditional classical, books of the Islamic law, you can ask us. We studied the Islamic law. So what we do nowadays is to come up with a collective answer, okay, or answers, instead of having an individual answer. I might be expert in certain field, but not that good in another field. I might be so conservative in certain issues and so lenient maybe or flexible in other fields. So my answer might not be as good, as accurate, as authentic, okay, as the fatwa or the religious verdict that issued by a group of scholars. And this is actually what we practice nowadays. Even in the Muslim world, actually, there are a lot of fiqh councils, okay, like senior scholars councils. okay, who introduce themselves to the, to the community, giving answers or fatwa for whatever contemporary issue the community might face. I wish I answered the question.
Shukran, Dr. Main.
Afwan.
I have a question, Dr. Main. So
Yes, sir.
you mentioned about how there's a big difference between establishing the marriage contract and consummating it.
Right.
The one, there's no minimum age, and the other one, it has to be where sex is both tolerable and enjoyable. And I was wondering, since you mentioned that that's not from the Quran, is that from the Prophet's marriages, like to Aisha, for example, or where does the tradition come from?
Yeah, that's a good example. You mentioned that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, gets married with Aisha and consummated the marriage with Aisha when she was as young as 9 years old. As young as 9 years old. He did the marriage contract when she was 6 years old, and then he consummated the marriage when she was 9 years old. But this is just like one example from the Sunnah. In the Quran, for example, you read it clearly in the chapter of divorce, Surah Al-Talaq. واللائي يئسن من المحيض من نسائكم إذا ارتبتم فعدتهن 3 أشهر واللائي لم يحضن. If the wife does not experience menstruation, what does it mean for you? It means that she is still young. If she got divorced, right, after the marriage is consummated, then she has to wait for 3 months, not 3 menstrual periods. Why? Because simply she does not experience, or she did not experience menstruation yet, which means that she did not even reach the age of puberty. Bear in mind that this is something actually differs from one society to another. Back in the lifetime of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, it was a very, very common and very acceptable, very widespread practice for a man, for a 50 years old man, to get married with a 9 years old girl. Was a very common practice, and the very good evidence for that is that the enemies of Muhammad, peace be upon him, did not raise any issue out of Muhammad getting married with Aisha, which means by default that it was a very common practice at that society.
Shukran jazeelan.
Absolutely.
Dr. Main, it's an honor to have a scholar like you join us this evening, so thank you for that. I have a question as well. This kind of goes back to the first question. You touched on this, that your group, AMJA, is concerned with giving a collective response to anyone who has questions about issues in modern society and how Islam reflects on those. Is there any effort? You also mentioned that about 500 years after the Prophet's time, that there was clear differences between the scholars. Is there any effort by the scholar community now to, instead of having this divide of different interpretations, to have a collective interpretation or a collective authorized work of scholars that reflects on issues in modern life, instead of looking back at fiqh rulings from different imams of different times?
Well, that's a very good question, and my answer is unifying or standardizing the fiqh nowadays is close to impossible. We absolutely cannot standardize the rules and just have one size fits all, one rule, agreed upon rule for every single issue. That is not close to impossible. That is impossible, because some of the evidences in the Quran, or even in the practice of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, are not straightforward to the point. Could be interpreted in different ways. And a part of our human nature is that our ability of comprehending those evidences, those religious texts in the Quran and the Sunnah is different. So those 4 different schools of thought are a good example of the diversity and the tolerance that we show to one another within the Sunni Muslim. A very good example is our Fiqh Council, AMJA. I represent in most cases the Shafi'i school of thought because that's my background, okay? And another scholar represent the Hanbali juristic school, and a third one represent the Maliki school of thought. We sit together, we debate, we reply, we debate again, and then we come up with an answer that is reasonable, that's acceptable to all of us. We do not have to agree on everything. We just have a policy. We are 7 members. If we have 4 out of 7, like simple majority, vote for a certain fatwa, then it actually, it is valid. It represents the resident fatwa committee. But to answer your question, it's really hard to standardize or to eliminate all those different schools of thought or just merge them in one school. That is close to impossible. And there is, by the way, there is a wisdom behind that. God actually wants the fiqh to be interpreted this way, because if we do have like one size fits all, a lot of people might be unable to practice everything. But when you have some flexibility, some diversity, well, according to the Shafi'i juristic school, I mean, this is not allowed. However, we do have flexibility in the Hanbali school. Well, you can do it by following the school of thought of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, for example. So it gives the Muslim community some flexibility and diversity and ease, actually, in which school you want to follow to make sure that you are not in a violation of the Islamic law at large.
So, Dr. Mang, this is Professor McNabb. So you're saying that it is okay to take sort of a cafeteria approach to your belief system, that in one particular area you might follow one school, and in another particular area another school, and it's okay to do that?
Not really. We call it fatwa shopping. Like you shop for different opinions, and you go with the easiest one. Well, it's not as simple as that. No, the common people, like ordinary individuals, are supposed to follow scholars whom they trust their knowledge and their commitment to Islam, like to be well known as a practicing individual and a well-versed scholar. So a common individual might ask me if he or she trusts me, and whatever actually answer I give him, he just follow. He just followed because Dr. Mann actually told him that go for it, or no, this is haram, this is prohibited, do not go for it. So it depends actually on the level of knowledge of individuals. If a certain individual is a very, very common, like layman individual, then he does not even have to worry about those 4 different juristic schools. He can just ask his imam or his sheikh or his consultant and get a fatwa from him and just apply it. If that individual is a student of knowledge, then no. He has to study the 4 different schools, and he has to figure out which one of them is more authentic in that particular point in a question, and then follow it. So it's not a fatwa shopping, so to speak. Yes, sir.
Any other questions, please? We have about 15 minutes left. So now
I have a question for Mr. Daruti.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Dr. Main said that really surprised me was how polygamy is promoted as a way to prevent lesbianism. But I was wondering, isn't there an offset? So the whole thing is that there's a statistic differentiation between male and female, 60 to 40. And if there's no polygamy, then there will be too many lesbians. But if there are gay men, doesn't that offset it? I was wondering is that like a widespread argument that's used as a basis for polygamy, and do you adopt it yourself?
Dr. Main, do you want to chime in on that?
No, please go ahead.
So, I guess you could get all sorts of arguments. We're a group of lawyers, right? So if we say the sky is blue, we are all going to have a different argument, on that. So, I mean, there could be a whole bunch of arguments, but then
I think that, just to interrupt you, if we say that polygamy prevents homosexuality, I don't think we will disagree on that. Anybody? Maybe.
well, that's good. I mean, if we don't disagree, that's great. But keep in mind, I mean, he only mentioned a few arguments for it. There's probably other arguments that also are existent for that practice and that justify it. So.
And if I may add to that, what I mentioned actually is the justification, okay, not the ruling of polygamy. Okay, now from our perspective, whenever something is set as permissible by God, we just take it as permissible, whether or not we know the wisdom behind the permissibility or the prohibition. Very good example. If you ask me a question, why Muslim community does not consume any pork products? To be honest with you, I do not have any answer. I mean, it is just prohibited. I cannot consume any pork product whatsoever. Now, whether or not I know the wisdom behind the prohibition of consuming pork products or not, it shouldn't make any difference. I have to refrain and stay away from pork products. I might come across a reason or justification or wisdom behind that prohibition one day, but the fact that I do not know the reason why pork products are prohibited should not stop me from fulfilling the rule. I have to stay away from it. So back to polygamy. Polygamy actually is permissible. Okay, now, what is the reason behind that permissibility? This is actually what I already explained. I mean, this is actually, not something that is agreed upon. It's just a common sense. It's just like analysis of why polygamy is permissible. But at the end of the day, it is permissible. Yet we are not promoting polygamy in the US because it is a federal offense and the law of the land actually does prohibit polygamy. I wish we can go back to the early 40s and 50s where polygamy was permissible, so we can practice it.
Inshallah, as they say.
Inshallah, yeah, one day.
Mohsen, do you not have just a burning question that you'd like to ask Mr. Jarudi or Dr. Main?
I guess it's on the hat.
It's up to you. We still have 15 minutes. Let's take advantage of these two guys being here, please.
All right, perfect. Well, let's do that. Here's one thought that I think Dr. Main might need some clarification as well. And I think you just clarified on the polygamy is that what you described was one justification. The other thought about why the man is in charge of the household. I think I can make a pretty good argument that we have plenty of women here in our classroom who can absolutely make rational arguments and rational decisions. So again, I think if you want to take a minute to clarify that area, I think that impression that I got is it would be a very sexist view to say that the justification is only that women cannot make rational decisions. Maybe I understood that wrong, or maybe I received that in the wrong manner. But yeah, if you want to clarify that, what are maybe other justifications? Why and is it just a ruling in the Quran that this is the way it is, and then we find the understandings through understanding the differences between men and women and how they approach things.
Well, one more time, when we say that the leadership of the household is for the husband and not for the wife, it does not indicate any dictatorship or belittling, the mind or the intellectual ability of women, or that the husband has to ignore his wife or to disrespect her or to ignore her or to be a dictator or to make like a sole decision without, consulting with his wife.
We lost Dr. Main.
Yeah, I think I lost audio too. Yeah.
Yep, I did too. Let's see here. I think let's just give it a minute. Mr. Jarudi, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yeah, I think it's just Dr. Mac.
Oh, I think he's back.
Are you back with us, Dr. May?
Yeah, can you see me? Can you hear me, everybody?
Yeah, we could hear you all along. Your video froze for a minute, and we couldn't hear the audio at all. But you're doing fine now. So
Okay.
the question is the man more reasonable than the woman? The woman is just emotional, and therefore the man controls.
Not controls, actually. They are in a more advanced position when it comes to the leadership. Otherwise, if you read in the biography and the history of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he did actually consult with his wife several times, and he took the advice of his wife several times. So we need to consider the text in the Quran along with the practice of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, because he is the best person to understand the text and the context of the Quran. When you put them together, the whole picture actually should be clear that a wife is to be consulted with, and her opinion is to be respected and to be heard, clearly. But again, when it comes to making decisions, I mean, what if the husband and the wife disagree, right? And a decision has to be made. Who has the authority to decide? It is actually the husband. Okay, and this is actually applies every time, everywhere. In the whole United States of America, we have only one president. Okay, for the whole Catholic community, we have only one pope, right? And on and on. In any vehicle, we have only one driver. In any household, we have only one leader, and that leader actually should be could be either the wife or the husband. From an Islamic perspective, actually, the husband is the one who takes the lead or has authority more than the wife, because actually he does spend on his wife. So because of the money that he spends, and because of the physical ability, because of the emotional and psychological ability, I mean, he can tolerate way more than what his wife can tolerate. He can work for 10, 12, 15 hours. He can spend on his family and take the whole responsibility. Because of the huge duties and responsibilities, it comes as a package. Okay, at the end of the day, he is the one actually who is more in charge than his wife.
I would say, Dr. Main, as one who has been married for over 45 years now, my secret to being married for 45 years is that my wife is always right.
There you go.
And so that would, of course, I think I'm more rational than she is, but I'd leave it to that. I'm curious as to whether in your classes, I assume that your classes have both male and female students, do they not?
Yes.
I'm curious as to whether you receive any pushback from your female students that perhaps they are more emotional than the rational males, and therefore the rational males are the ones that make the decision. Do you have any pushback from the female students on that issue?
Well, I do have pushback not only from my female students, but from my own biological daughters. There you go. I have two daughters, and both of them UFH graduate. One of them is 25 years old, and the other one is 23 years old. And we always have that discussion and argument why men are in charge. Okay, we went to school, we have a degree, we have jobs, we make money. Okay, well, we are old enough, mature enough. So like our potential husband should not take over the leadership, over us. I mean, we are responsible like our potential husband. Why they are in charge? And actually, we have that interesting, debate and discussion. So to answer the question, yes, I do have that pushback every time, everywhere, actually, even in my own family.
Well, thank you for your honesty on that. Ambrosio, did I see you raise your hand? Did you have a question?
Oh, no, Professor. I've just been married almost a year, and my wife is pretty much always right as well. So I was just giving you a thumbs up. But I can ask a question if you like.
Sure, go ahead.
Go ahead. And this is a question for either. The classical view of the payment for dower was considered to be a payment for the access for sexual intercourse. And what is the more modern view? Is it the gift to the wife, as you stated before, something from the heart, or is it the payment for sexual access?
Well, respectfully, actually, I disagree with you that dower is given for the sexual access. This is a wrong interpretation by some scholars, because in the Quran itself, which is the highest authority, okay, it has been mentioned clearly in the Quran. If you get a chance to read the Quran, وَآتُوا النِّسَاءَ صَدُقَاتِهِنَّ نِحْلَةً, and you husbands or men, you should give the dower to your wives as a gift. So it's a nice gesture of love and hope for like good, harmonious, happy life. It has absolutely nothing to do with like sex, as you said, access. Not as it is not. I mean, intimacy is one of the like eventual consequences of the marriage contract. Once a man and a woman gets married, I mean, they will not like stay watching one another. They're gonna just have sex, right? So it happens like by default, but actually it has nothing to do absolutely with the dower. So he's not paying her like to sleep with her, so to speak. That's according to the Quran. Because the way that we look at the marriage agreement, okay, is that again it's one of the most sacred, one of the most religious, sacred, spiritual, ethical commitments between two different souls. Okay, it's way like more than a physical or sexual relationship. If that makes sense.
So, Dr. Main, sorry if I'm asking too many questions, but they mentioned that in our book. They actually mentioned that counterpoint, and something I'm curious about. They said that if the marriage does not get consummated, that only half of the dower is due. Is that still the mainstream interpretation? And if so, then how is it not attached to sexual access?
Yes. Well, what you said actually is correct. If the marriage is consummated, then the whole dowry actually is due. If there was a divorce, okay, from the husband's side, okay, like he was the one who initiated, the desire that we cannot continue together, and he divorced her, then half of the dowry actually is due. But what if she was the one who decided to break? Then there is no dower to start with. And again, this has nothing to do with the sexual access. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, where did we get it from that the husband actually is paying money like to sleep with his wife? Well, if that is the case, then he has to pay her like for every single event whenever they sleep together, which is not the case. It's just a one-time payment. It could be as simple as a few dollars, as simple as engagement ring. I mean, anything that does have a value to show just love and harmony and best wishes for harmonious life. It has nothing to do actually with sex at all.
Okay, but I just wanted to clarify. It's a gift that's conditional on sex, right?
Well, again, I'm not sure. I mean, why we involve sex here? I mean, whenever a man is
saying that if there's no sex, only half of it's due. And if there is sex, then the full thing is due if the husband wants to divorce. So that's why I'm mentioning sex, because it's part of the interpretation.
I see. Well, add to that if the wife actually is the one who initiated her desire to break the marriage contract, then there is no dowry at all, neither full nor half. I mean, just to make it clear that actually sex is not like a driving factor. It is not actually.
Yeah, Dr. Main, this issue came up. The vice dean at the University of Pittsburgh Law School is the author of the case book that we used in our class. It is the only case book that I'm aware of that's published. And the author mentioned the quid pro quo between the dower and the sex. The author just published, which the students have read, just published the latter part of December, a nutshell. Mr. Drudy, you're familiar with the West Nutshell, just published a nutshell on Islamic law where he was even more explicit about the relationship between the payment of dower and access to the body of his wife. So my students are asking you these sexual questions because it was a question that came up in class that we spent some time discussing as to whether there was any legitimacy or whether to that argument, or whether the author is taking a super minority view but presenting it as if it's the basic proposition in Islamic law.
Maybe we can ask the author, how can he justify the fact that the husband, after the consummation of the marriage contract, he still actually has to sponsor his wife, whether she is ready for sex or she is not, whether she is absent, like traveling overseas, or she is with him, whether she has her menstrual period where he cannot have sex with her according to the Islamic law or not, and why even after her husband passes away, she is entitled to 1/4 of the estate of the husband. I mean, he has to spend and give her money even after her, even after his death. So he has to sponsor her, covering whole basic expenses. Okay, despite the fact that he might not actually have sex with her. So that connection for me is not clear. How can he justify that even upon the death of the husband, she takes like 1/4 of his estate if he did not leave behind any kids, and she is entitled to 1/8, okay, 1/8 of his estate if he left behind some kids. Yeah. So honestly, I do not see that strong connection between paying a dowry, like to have a sexual, access. I mean, this is with all due respect, a wrong link or wrong connection between the dowry and the sexual access. And again, if she is the one who initiated, or well, if she is the one who decided not to proceed with the marriage, then there is no dower whatsoever, neither full nor half of it. I mean, just to make it clear that dower is not connected to sexual access at all.
Well, I believe, thank you for that. We are out of time. It's my understanding that someone may be reaching out to the author to seek clarification on that. If you have a fatwa or something that you could email me as authority contrary to his position, that would be super. That we could pass along. But for the class, I again, Dr. Main and Mr. Drudy, I really want to thank you all for taking your time out this evening to visit with us. I know that it's not easy to do the way that we're all having to do things these days, but your presentations were very much appreciated. Thank you all so much.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity again. I really, enjoyed having this class and this like informative conversation with you, Professor McNabb, and with the ladies and gentlemen in your class. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to end the meeting now.
Professor Main.